Hey guys, Wade here again with another update. So with the panel, like I said before, I was pretty much right in my hypothesis. This little area down here was a minor problem, as was this corner down here being a minor problem. The major problem is this glare shield is probably about, I would say if you're at a zero baseline, it's probably about 70 thousandths below. And then over in this corner, if you had a zero baseline, it's actually a little bit more curved. And I would say it's probably about 30, 40 thousandths above that zero baseline if you were to actually have a perfectly smooth curve across. Of course, we don't have uh, machined parts going in here, and it's all hand carved, so there's a variance between one side and the other. So you can see where this maybe, but I'll just tell you that there's a little bit more of a gap here. This should go up a little bit farther than it is. And then this is being driven down a little bit more than it should be. And it's this curve up here. So it's actually taking the entire panel and tilting it a little bit, shifting it that way, rotating it, I guess would be the better description. So, but by doing, when I say doing, by trimming this down here, trimming this corner here, getting this squared away a little bit there so it wasn't digging in and down in that corner, it allowed this to be centered up in the center. This is just slightly off down here, but you can see even though the cut's wrong, the alignment, if you were to look at the last video, the alignment here is much better. And so I just need to do some tweaking on the panel. So I've got my notes. I'll probably do one more test panel cut out of the thinner 22 gauge steel. I also, associated with that, I was able to figure out what was going on working with Langmuir systems on the plasma cutting table. So I was just able to cut out the second test panel out of actual 22 gauge steel. This time it went a lot better. I actually got another plasma cutter from PrimeWeld, but I didn't end up using it. I converted the first one to something that's called raw voltage, and that's just kind of breaking into the machine and tying into the actual electrodes to get the voltage that you need. And so Langmuir Systems, that makes the plasma cutting table, they supply those pigtails, and I use those and tied in, and it actually worked. So I cut all of this, cut everything. It cut the entire perimeter starting down in this corner all the way up to right about here, and then it timed out. I got an arc voltage loss, but that's all right. It did really well, and then I restarted here, and it actually went all the way around. And so 2 cuts pretty much in 2 sessions, and it finished it. So I noticed immediately when I tried to put test panel number 2 in, this guy, that again I had to trim up this little area right here, probably about 1/10 of an inch, to get this thing to go in and fit in. So I'm going to have to trim that up. I took a significant amount off of this curve right here. That seems to be fitting well once I got this trimmed. The corners seem to be doing well. I chamfered those so that they're curved, so that helped somewhat. There's still a little bit of a gap up in here. I think I'm going to leave that, because if I'm going to pull any cabling out from behind the panel, it'll come through there. And I also notched it there for some cabling that's specific to the HUD that I'll have. Yeah, I know. Chris Seats, my buddy up in Fredericksburg, he calls this the Cadillac EZ, so I'm trying to live up to that name. But this test panel came out really nice. If you remember down here, this was just butchered completely. There's not a lot there, but this hit it a lot better. And I'm really impressed with the actual corners here. Usually we have some issues with some rounding of the corners. It looks pretty good. So I'll show you this real quick. I will be making some tweaks on this actual guy right here, this kind of shows you what that middle notch is for. This is the, what would you call this, a warning module system or whatever, sub panel. So these are the AG6 warning annunciators, and then there's this handles the automatic gear extension over on this side with the switch. And then over here, if I have an electrical system failure with the main alternator, this handles bringing up the mini SD8 vacuum pad pump alternator that's on the engine. It's about an 8 to 10 amp alternator. It's a secondary one that will feed the emergency bus. This switch handles all that. So kind of got my my emergency system right up here, and I wanted to bring it out so that this was a lot closer and in my face, right underneath the glare shield, and so that's kind of serving that purpose. Also, all the wires that would normally, with these, everything on here would have to have its own separate hole inside the panel, and anything pretty much in this panel has to go through to the composite panel in the back. So with all this stuff back here, I only really need maybe 2 slots to run all those wires, 2 small slots for that. So a little tweaking up here, probably going to have to move this hole, maybe that hole too, bring those down a little bit. Then the other area is right here. So it's maybe hard to see, but this panel, around the leg holes especially, it actually is, it's inset so that the original panel, which is smooth and nice on easy on the legs, is farther out than the metal panel. So that's, everything is good except for right here, and I'm gonna have to trim this down a little bit. So I'll do that in CAD, trim that down, get this corner. I think everything else looks pretty good. This is fairly centered. Like I said, there's a little bit of a gap up here, and maybe a little bit, this could be extended up just a hair, but you know, it's so close and underneath the glare shield when everything's said and done, I just don't think it's worth this. Moving this up 60 thousandths of an inch would, you know, 1/16 of an inch, it would take an hour probably of, well, maybe half an hour, and it's just, I don't know if it's worth it. So I'll play around with it and see, and I might move this out just a hair, tweak it just a little bit, but probably one more test panel, and then within the next week, and then I think we're going to go live with the real panel. All right, cheers. Thanks for watching.